So on today's episode, I'm excited to introduce David Knight. He's a seasoned professional in the financial services sector with over 14 years experience, expertise spanning mortgage, protection advice, retail sales, management, customer service, and coaching. David is committed to helping his clients achieve their long-term financial goals. David, how are you today?
Very good. Thank you, David. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, fantastic. Yeah, no, firstly, thank you ever so much for taking the time to join us and share a bit about your story. It's useful for the listeners just to sort of start us off with a little bit around what it is that you do and what sort of services you guys offer, if that's all right.
So we've got sort of three businesses as part of the group, and across those businesses, we can effectively access the whole of the lending market, whether that be in the residential purchase space, including buy-to-lets, commercial property and development finance, and also business finance. So under one roof, we can effectively deal with anybody's personal sort of mortgage requirements, business mortgage requirements, and also their business finance requirements.
You're good. And how long ago did you start the business?
So we started the business 6.5 years ago, and the
Yeah.
first part of that business was the mortgage branch, the residential side of things, because that's where our sort of expertise sort of sat after coming out the sort of corporate world in that area. And then in terms of, as we sort of grew that business, we sort of saw opportunities in terms of the commercial side of things where we were getting some inquiries from that. So set that up to complement the residential side and offer that extended service. And then through that, again, started to sort of see the opportunity in terms of the business finance side where we could bolt that on to the sort of business clients, corporate clients that we have. So we can effectively offer
Yeah.
that unicorn, that approach where we can expand and retract our sort of services to sort of meet certain clients' needs.
Very good. So 6.5 years ago, where does that put us in terms of sort of COVID? That must have been just pre-COVID, was it?
Yeah, 2000 and February 2018 set the business up.
So I'd imagine you've seen some interesting times in the industry
Absolutely. When we set it up, rates were not too dissimilar to where they are today,
okay.
sort of high 2%, low 3%. So we're probably
Yeah.
a percentage point above that in terms of the residential side. Obviously, when COVID came along, everyone sort of sat back, markets closed, those sorts of things. But within a month of COVID coming along, suddenly, everything started to go mad. People were looking to sort of get out of cities, get out of flats, all those sorts of things. So there was a huge range of movement in the sort of property market.
Yeah.
And obviously rates were significantly depressed in that time, plus the advantages of stamp duty being paused. So it really sort of massively opened up the market. Was that a positive? Potentially, but now we're obviously seeing the downside of that in terms of where the economy sort of gone to, where rates have gone to, inflation, all those sorts of things. So yeah, we've seen the whole range from a sort of normal market to a very, very unexpected market to sort of moving back to a sort of standardized market that you probably would have seen post the sort of financial crash in 2008.
And you say before starting the business, you come from a corporate background. So is this your first business that you've
Yes. Yeah.
set up? Okay.
So
yeah. What would you say as a business owner, what would you say your biggest challenges have been in those sort of 6.5 years?
Biggest challenges, obviously dealing with market and how they've sort of reacted over the years, and to sort of react with those. Obviously building the brand and setting out a sort of marketing plan. When you first sort of start a business, sometimes you sort of, the onus is on obviously generating income. So you grab as much as you can from every single opportunity that you've got available to you. And sometimes you become a bit of a jack of all trades and sort of master of none, really. So we've made certain conscious decisions to try and sort of identify key market areas where we can sort of specialize in those, and obviously grab certain market share within that. And then develop into other areas where again we can build on the marketing strategies that we've had in place. So biggest stresses and struggles, obviously trying to define who you are, what you represent, then building plans around that, and then obviously being able to sort of develop into those markets without trying to be too broad in terms of your offerings and those sorts of things. So
it sounds like you've sort of done that. You found your sort of target market in terms of the products and services, and also your customers and things. What impact do you think? Because look, you're right. It's tempting very early on, and rightly so, to grab as much business as possible for cash flow and profit and things like that. What impact do you think having that targeted approach and real focus approach has had on you helping you grow the business?
Um, we've become experts in our field.
Yeah.
So in terms of um, scaling the business and those sorts of things, probably 80% of our clients come from word of mouth referrals, those sorts
Okay.
of things, because they know that we can get those sorts of jobs done. We haven't massively gone into the market in terms of web-based marketing, pay-per-click, social media, all the sort of natural routes that people would tend to take. We've been out in there and created a brand around us and what we can deliver, and then that's sort of mushroomed out from there. In terms of where we are as a business now, having sort of grown over the years, and obviously the financial pressures and the sort of lead numbers and those sorts of things that you need to increase, we're now sort of starting to reach into those other more normal marketing areas just to, again, push the boundaries in terms of moving that market share forward and gathering more opportunities into the business, whilst also that being supplemented very healthily by existing clients, referrals, recommendations, those sorts of things.
So it sounds like it's purposeful growth. There's a strategy to the growth
Yes,
process.
absolutely.
If you could go back again, if you could go back your 6.5 years and start again, if you had the opportunity to redo it, would you do anything differently? And if you would, what would you do differently?
What we did differently. I think building a more structured plan when you start would be the number one thing.
Okay.
Really sort of looking at what you want to build and how you want to build it. And then trying to work as closely to that plan as possible. Because again, when we started the business, it was a case of, we knew how to broker.
Yeah.
We knew the mortgage market, we knew the lending market, all those sorts of things. And I think it was a case of suck it and see a little bit.
Okay.
We knew we could go and win business and we knew we could go and place business. But in terms of then starting to build a plan around that, that sort of came at a slightly later stage when suddenly you get a bit busier and suddenly you need to start employing staff, and then you need to start looking at different premises, and then you need to start looking at what is your marketing structure and strategy? How are you going to deal with your existing clients? How are you going to go and network? So I think if we'd been a bit more clearer in terms of these are the things that we want to be doing, this is the impact that those are going to have on the business, these are the areas that we need to spend money in, these are the decisions that we need to be making on a daily basis. I think if we'd had a bit more of that structure, things maybe would have, been slightly different. Not that we haven't been unsuccessful, but sometimes in business, every day is a learning day.
Yeah.
And whenever you start a business, unless you've run one before, you don't necessarily know what tomorrow will bring or what you need to be doing on a regular basis. So I think it would have been probably getting a bit more advice around, what do we need to be thinking about? How do we need to be implementing this? What is the right stage to start taking staff on? Where do we need to be focusing our attention on our money? So probably that, taking a step back before you begin and getting some advice.
It's good advice, because I think you're right. There's a lot of industries, there's a lot of people that've got industry specific knowledge out there, start a business, but there is the business of being in business as well, isn't there? It's a separate part of it.
And of course, when you're starting a business, you're the marketing man, the chief financial officer, the networker, the BDM, the salesperson, the admin person, and suddenly, trying to actually carve out a bit of time to sit and reflect on the business and plan is obviously key.
Especially the world we live in these days, because there's so much to do all the time, isn't there? So much opportunity. There's so many shiny objects we can go and chase and things like that.
Absolutely. And again, sometimes it's we've got the adage in the business: good customer, bad customer.
Yeah.
Sometimes you trip over yourself to try and help that customer, and they become more of a hindrance than a benefit to your business.
Yeah. Good point.
So it's identifying again, are you getting into bed with the right people? Are you dealing with the right people? And again, you're always going to get that occasional customer that takes up more of your time than is absolutely necessary. But again, we found our way through that in terms of how we pre-qualify and look at our clientele and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned time a couple of times. Obviously, there's the same number of hours for everybody. So how do you How do you prioritize your time and make sure you're focusing on the right things? What sort of things do you do as a business owner?
Um, I mean, now we've sort of become more experienced in business. Obviously, I've got a very clear to-do list, but that to-do list is to check off. I've also got a sort of default diary where I will put certain things in every single week, every month, every quarter that sit there that allow me time to not sort of worry about when I'm going to do them. They're already sort of broken down into that week, month, quarter, and then everything else sort of sits around that in terms of what the deliverables are on a sort of day-to-day basis. But I mean, the key constraints of my time are at the moment, obviously dealing with staff and developing them and making sure that they're doing what they need to be doing, making sure the financials are there and reviewing those and making sure that we're making the right decisions with those, and then looking at sort of strategy and how we're going to, get to the lead numbers that we need to get to, and working with partners and people in the business to sort of help support that. So I'm taking more of a sort of oversight role in the business these days, as opposed to sort of being embedded in it, which allows me that 360-degree helicopter view to happen more regularly, so I can then start to make the right decisions in terms of the strategy and obviously utilize my time effectively to put the building blocks in place to deliver those strategies.
Yeah, very good. So you've moved away from that wearing every hat to more of that sort of, like, say,
Sometimes you fall into that when you need must, but 80% of the time I'm looking at the business. I'm not in the business.
Yeah, very good. And you mentioned default diary there, because obviously that's a strategy that sort of we use quite regularly with our clients and things. What impact has that had on that productivity, that focus, being really sort of stringent with your time? How much impact has that had on you?
It's a difficult one to get used to, because you've
Yeah.
got lots of pulls on your time and those sorts of things. But as I've sort of worked at it over the past 6 to 9 months, it's becoming much more effective, because my to-do list is suddenly much smaller.
Yeah.
Because it's much clearer and centered around the things that are going to be effective for the business and make me effective. And also, I know in the back of my mind that I've got that time already allocated, so I'm not having to sort of constantly sort of think, well, when can I do that? When is that in? And if it's in my diary, then it's blocked out and nobody can obviously block it in. So I know that is safeguarded. And it gives me the opportunity to sort of step back or do the things that I need to do on a daily basis without the pressure of having to think about where everything else sort of fits into the grand scheme of things. So in terms of that default diary, it's difficult to start with, and you have to be disciplined with it, because it's very easy to click a mouse and move something to another day. But trying not to do that and trying to sort of control your diary is massive.
It's building that discipline muscle, isn't it? It's it's exercising that muscle, and it changes, doesn't it, over time? So your default diary from like 3 years ago would be different.
Completely different.
So it's constantly sort of revisiting it. Funny enough, I've been looking at mine this morning with my coach.
And you have to review it, because things will change, and you may have spent 3 months at doing something. It might be dedicated to, I don't know, broker development or those sorts of things, which that's then moved on, and you need to sort of move into a different sort of area. So again, it's reminding yourself that your time is important as well as everyone else's, but you can't get that time back.
No, that's very true. It's very true. Let's talk about teams. So as you know, a team will be able to take your business further than you can ever do on your own. So you're growing a successful team. What sort of things do you look for in finding the right people and sort of fostering that collaborative and high performance approach? How do you go around finding the right people to surround yourself with?
I mean, in terms of finding the right people, I learned it fairly early in terms of when I started to take on management roles in the corporate world. That the majority of people, 90% of the people that you interview will have the required experience. They will know what they're doing in terms of when you employ them. They'll come across obviously positively, those sorts of things. The number one thing that I look for in people is, and the number one question I ask myself after every interview is, would I want to spend my day with that person?
Okay.
Could I sit next to them and be comfortable in their presence, get along with them. Have they got the right type of character, such as me, or that will complement the team? Because if I'm going to employ somebody and I'm going to, be working with them, developing them, helping them, engaging with them, then there needs to be a likable quality there. So that's the number one thing.
Okay.
Because skills can be learned, skills can be developed, things can be taught to people. So again, it then comes down to what's their sort of attitude like. Are they a self-starter? Are they willing to go the extra mile? Can they evidence those in sort of past roles that they've performed? So then it comes down to attitude, and also we do the sort of personality questionnaires and those sorts of things that will give us an idea of, if I'm looking for somebody in admin, I want a high blue. If I want somebody to go out and lead my sales team and go and win business, I want a high red. So it's balancing their character, their attitude, past experiences, and also then I suppose the character traits that are required for that role.
Yeah. So you're looking for people that have got a cultural fit, that are aligned to your values, the business values, and then also that have got the right behavioural traits to fulfil the role that you're looking to fill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very good.
It's that old test, could I go to the pub with somebody and have a drink and we can get on?
Yeah, you spend a lot of time with your colleagues,
don't
don't
you?
you?
That's the number one. I spend more time in my business than I do with my family. So
yeah. And culture is a massive part of business success, as you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you've got the right people then, so you've gone through that process and you've identified the right candidates that will fit in with the team and stuff, how do you then create that sort of high performing culture and sort of keep and cultivate that, keep it going, keep it alive?
I mean, setting the right expectations early on.
Okay.
That's massively important. We're not running a kindergarten here. I don't need to be on people's backs all the time. My attitude is, prove to me that you can do the job. The onus is on you, not on me. I will support you in every way that I can, but you have a job to do that you said you can do. So, let's start on the right foot. Then it comes down to obviously regularly meeting with teams and staff and sort of reviewing performance. If somebody's struggling, we'll put some things in place to sort of support them and work with them to make the improvements they need. Highlighting success in terms of, where people are doing the right thing and showing the right behaviors and those sorts of things to build that culture and that attitude of, we want to push ourselves and we want to move forward. We have a quarterly all hands meeting where the entire across the three businesses come together, because again, we're great believers in terms of people need to know where we are, what we're doing, where we're going, the pressures that we're facing as a business, where people fit into that cog, and being very honest in terms of, how we sort of share the performance of our business, even down to, what our monthly costs are, so that people have an awareness of, right, if I go and do that and there is a financial cost to it, it has to fit into the grand scheme of things, so that people have that, again, that sort of 360 view of, where they fit into it, where their team fits into it, how they can support the business. And then we can sort of work it back in terms of what that cultural sort of look needs to feel like, and making sure that teams are working together. We've got an admin team, we've got a sales team. Sales team want to go out and do everything and, drop stuff on an admin desk, but admin don't want to be picking up a load of paperwork or, stuff with missing files because they're on to the next thing. They've got to work together, because again, there's a client at the middle of that, and every single piece of the puzzle needs to be put together with care and attention, and to make sure that we get the proper end product for that client. So it's that understanding piece.
I love that, bringing the team together as well on that sort of regular basis. You're clearly sharing common goals, so everybody's aligned towards those sort of common objectives. Inclusion, so you're including everybody in those conversations with the information you're sharing as well. Really, really good.
Yeah.
So future, you're obviously growing a successful business. What does the future look like for you guys? Where are you taking it, and what does the next sort of 3, 4, 5 years look like for you guys?
I mean, our view is we want to have, the difficult that we've had is if you focus on one business, almost becomes quite easy, because we've built 3 businesses, or are building 3 businesses at the same time. That comes with its own pressures, but ultimately we want to have 3 very strong businesses, where we're comfortable in terms of who we are and where our brand sits and those sorts of things. Probably across the businesses, 30 to 40 staff.
Yep.
proper structure and management structure in place. So as directors, again, we can take another step back, and we can oversee the business, but we can find some time for ourselves, and we can get something back for the sacrifices that we've sort of put into the business over what will be a sort of 10-year period, where we can give back to our families. We can spend the time that we need with them, but ultimately look after your people, make sure the families are looked after, make sure the businesses are in a strong place, where we can continue to stay in business for a long time, basically.
Sounds good. I'm no doubt you're going to achieve those goals and those ambitions. David, it's been really, really good to talk to you today. Thank you very much for sharing, a little bit about your business story and stuff. So before we go and before we wrap up, can you just let the listeners know where they need to go, or where they can go to find out a little bit more about, your services and
Yeah, I mean,
what you're up to?
it's all very simple. We've got the mortgage branch. So
Yeah.
just Google the mortgage branch and you'll find us. We've got the commercial branch, you'll find us, and we've got the business finance branch. So all very consistent, very clear. If you want a residential mortgage, go to the mortgage branch. If you're interested in looking at an owner-occupier purchase of the property you're in, or you're a builder or developer and you want to get into sort of development finance and building out, then the commercial branch is where we're at. And if you're a business who's looking at cash flow, wants to understand what their options are, they need some invoice factoring, they want to grow and recruit, then the business finance branch is where we can support you on that.
There you go. Nice and straightforward, very self-explanatory.
Absolutely.
David, thank you again for your time. Appreciate it.
That's a pleasure. Thank you, David. Appreciate yours.
Cheers.